The last broadcast magistrate Velnara stood at the observation window of the command center and watched the sky burn. 52 days. That was how long the shields had held against the Krell bombardment. 52 days of watching green energy bolts hammer against the flickering barrier that protected Tireth Prime. 52 days of hoping someone would answer their calls for help. No one had come. Velnara was old, even by her species standards. Her silver skin had faded to gray, and her forearms trembled with fatigue. She had led this colony for 30 years, guiding 4,200 miners and their families through hard times and good. They had pulled rare minerals from the planet's crust and sent them across the galaxy. They had never harmed anyone. They had followed every law, paid every tax, and believed the Galactic Federation would protect them if danger ever came. They had been wrong. Behind her, the command center buzzed with quiet activity. Officers monitored failing systems and rationed the last of their power reserves. The shields were at 8%. Maybe 6 hours left, maybe less. Food supplies could last another week, but it would not matter. When the shields fell, the Krell would come through. Everyone knew what happened to colonies the Krell conquered. The stories were clear enough. The Krell did not take prisoners for ransom or slaves for labor. They harvested. Velnara remembered the moment she knew they were truly alone. It was day 7 of the siege. She had sent urgent messages to the Galactic Federation headquarters, to neighboring systems, to anyone with ships and weapons. The Federation had finally responded. Ambassador Thessian's face had appeared on the screen, cool and professional as always. He was a Kethran, all sleek fur and calculating eyes. He had looked at her with something like pity, but his words had been cold mathematics. Magistrate Velnara, Thessian had said, the Council has reviewed your situation. We have run extensive analysis on potential rescue operations. He had paused, and Velnara had felt hope flutter in her chest. Then Thessian had continued. The cost of mounting a fleet large enough to break the Krell siege is estimated at 47 million credits. Current assessments place Sireth Prime's total economic value at 2.3 million credits. The Council has determined that a rescue operation would represent an unacceptable loss. Your request is denied. The Federation extends its sympathies. The transmission had ended. Just like that. 47 million versus 2.3 million. The math did not work, so 4,200 people would die. Velnara had sent messages to other species, to trade partners, to colonies they had helped in the past. Some did not reply. Others sent regrets. The Krell were too dangerous. The cost was too high. The risks were too great. Everyone was very sorry, but no one was coming. In the engineering section 3 levels below, Chief Engineer Morvan wiped grease from his hands and stared at the shield generator display. The massive machine hummed and sparked, running far beyond its designed capacity. He and his team had performed miracles over the past 52 days, rerouting power, cannibalizing non-essential systems, and pushing every component past its limits. But miracles had limits. Morvan was a broad-shouldered being with rocky skin and eyes that glowed faint orange. He had built half the infrastructure on Sireth Prime with his own hands. He knew every pipe, every wire, every system in the colony. He also knew that in approximately 5 hours and 40 minutes, the shield generator would overheat past the point of recovery. It would melt down and the shields would fail. Father? The voice was soft, worried. Morvan turned to see his daughter Paula approaching through the tangle of machinery. She was 16, young for their species, with skin still smooth and eyes still bright. She carried a toolkit and wore the apprentice engineer uniform he had given her 2 years ago. He wished she was anywhere but here. You should be in the shelters with the others, Morvan said, keeping his voice gentle. I am an engineer, Paula replied, lifting her chin. My place is here helping you. She moved to a control panel and began checking power flow readings. Her hands moved with the confidence he had taught her, but he could see them shaking slightly. Morvan wanted to send her away, to keep her safe for just a few more hours. But safe from what? When the shields fell, there would be nowhere safe on Sireth Prime. The Krell would come through like a flood, and that would be the end. At least here in engineering, they could face it together. He returned to his work, making adjustments that would buy them perhaps another 30 minutes of power. Behind him, he heard Paula quietly reciting system specifications, using the familiar technical litany to calm her fears. It was something he used to do when she was small and frightened of storms. He felt his heart break a little more. On one of the maintenance computers, Morven had opened a recording file. It was a letter to his wife, Silentha, who had died 4 years ago in a mining accident. He had been recording messages to her since the siege began. It helped him think. In the latest message, he told her about Paula's bravery, about how proud Silentha would be. He told her that he was sorry he could not protect their daughter. He told her that he would see her soon. High above the colony, in the largest of the Krell siege ships, Hive leader Silth observed the failing shields with satisfaction. Zilth was enormous even for a Krell warrior, standing 3 meters tall with chitinous armor thick as stone. 4 massive arms ended in razor claws and mandibles clicked with anticipation. Behind Zilth, hundreds of warriors prepared for the assault. They sharpened weapons, checked armor, and chattered in their clicking, hissing language. The Krell did not see the colonists below as people. They were resources. Useful organic matter. The Krell swarm consumed everything in its path, breaking down biological material to fuel their ever-expanding hive. This was simply another harvest. Zilth had led 23 such operations. The process was always the same. Arrive, besiege, harvest, move on. The colonists would plead and bargain and call for help that never came. Then they would die and the swarm would grow stronger. Shilth clicked an order to the bombardment crews. Maintain pressure. The barrier will fail soon. Prepare landing forces. The bridge crew acknowledged with chittering sounds. Everything was proceeding as expected. Another routine harvest. Another colony that thought themselves important enough to save. They were not. No one ever was. In the communications room of the command center, Junior Officer Ren sat at his station and did his job even though he knew it was pointless. Ren was young, barely into adulthood with bright blue skin and hope that had not yet been completely crushed. He monitored all frequencies, listening for any response to their distress signals. For 52 days he had heard nothing but silence and static, but he kept listening. It was all he could do. At hour 52, day 3, and minute 47, something changed. Ren's display flickered. Energy readings spiked. Multiple contacts entering the system at the outer marker. His eyes widened. He ran the readings again, thinking it must be an error. The contacts remained. Ships. Multiple ships moving fast. Very fast, Magistrate. Ren's voice cracked with sudden urgency. Magistrate Velnara, you need to see this. Velnara moved to his station, her old body forcing itself to hurry. Other officers gathered around. What is it? She asked, trying to keep hope from entering her voice. Hope was dangerous now. Hope would make the end harder. Ships, Ren said, his hands flying across the controls. At least 15 contacts, possibly more. They just appeared at the system edge and they are accelerating toward us. He pulled up a tactical display. Bright icons moved across the screen, closing the distance to Sereth Prime with remarkable speed. Krell reinforcements, someone muttered. They are bringing more ships to finish us. But Ren shook his head, confusion clear on his face. No, Magistrate. These energy signatures, they do not match Krell technology. They do not match anything in our database. I have never seen drive systems like this. Velnara stared at the display. Unknown ships. Coming from the outer system, she felt that old, dangerous emotion stirring in her chest again. Hope. Can you hail them? Attempting now, Ren said. He opened communication channels across all standard frequencies. Unknown vessels, this is Sereth Prime Colony. Please identify yourselves. We are under siege and require assistance. Please respond. For a long moment, only static answered. Then the speakers crackled. A voice came through, speaking a language the translation system struggled with at first. The words were harsh, clipped, like nothing Velnara had heard before. But slowly the computer found patterns, built a dictionary, and meaning emerged. It was a female voice, strong and clear. Sereth Prime Colony. This is Rear Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet Earth Defense Force. We have received your distress calls. We are here to help. Please transmit your current tactical situation. Terran, Earth. The words meant nothing to Velnara. She had never heard of such a species. But that voice, firm and certain, cut through the static like a blade. Someone had come. After 52 days of silence, after the Federation had abandoned them, after every neighbor had turned away, someone had actually come. Velnara's forehands gripped the console edge to steady herself. Around her, the command center had gone silent. Every eye was on the screen. "This is Magistrate Velnara," she said, her voice shaking. "We are a mining colony of 4,200 civilians. We have been under siege by Krell forces for 52 days. Our shields are failing. We have perhaps 6 hours remaining. Who are you? Why have you come?" There was a pause. Then Admiral Chen spoke again, and Velnara heard something in that voice that she had not heard from any other species during this nightmare. She heard anger, real burning anger on their behalf. "Magistrate, we picked up your distress signal 4 weeks ago. It took us time to get here. As for who we are, you will find out soon enough. As for why we came," and another pause. "Because you called for help, stand by. We are engaging the Krell fleet now." On the tactical display, the unknown ships these Terrans accelerated to attack speed. They outnumbered the Krell 3-1, but they were not running. They were charging straight into battle. Velnara watched the screen, her hands trembling, and allowed herself to feel something she thought she had lost forever: hope. Earth's answer aboard the Tess Valiant. Rear Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge and watched her fleet deploy for battle. 18 warships spread across the tactical display, moving into attack formation with practiced precision. The crew moved around her with quiet efficiency, calling out status reports and coordinate updates. Chen had trained these people well. They knew what to do. Chen was 52 years old, her hair going gray at the temples, her face lined from years of command. She had been born on Earth, in a city called Shanghai, back when humanity still thought they were alone in the universe. That had changed 40 years ago, when the first alien probe had entered the solar system. First contact had come 15 years later, and Chen had been there. She had been a captain then, commanding a UN peacekeeper vessel in the Mars Patrol. She had shaken hands or claws or tentacles with beings from a dozen different worlds. What she had learned in those 15 years had both amazed and disappointed her. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, ancient civilizations, incredible technologies, and species beyond counting. But the galaxy was also cold. Life was calculated in credits and resources. The Galactic Federation that governed most of known space operated on strict economic principles. Everything had a price. Everyone had a value. Help came only when the math made sense. Humanity had chosen a different path. When Earth had finally built ships capable of long-range travel, when they had developed drives that could match or exceed most galactic species, they had made a decision. They would answer distress calls. All of them. Not just the profitable ones. Not just the strategic ones. All of them. Because some things were not about mathematics. "Admiral," her tactical officer called out. "Krell fleet is moving to intercept. They are powering weapons. Count as 38 warships ranging from frigate to battleship class." Chen nodded. 38 against 18. The Krell had numerical advantage and probably thought that would be enough. They were about to learn differently. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Remember your training. Do not engage in standard galactic combat doctrine. Use pattern Delta 7, hit and fade. Keep them off balance. Make them think we are everywhere at once." Acknowledgements came back from all 18 captains. Chen smiled slightly. The Galactic Federation had rules about how space battles were supposed to work. Ships formed up in nice, orderly lines and exchanged fire until one side broke. It was civilized. It was predictable. It was also stupid, at least to human thinking. Humanity had learned warfare on Earth, where survival often meant breaking rules and thinking creatively. They brought that experience to space. "Engage," Chen ordered. The human fleet scattered. Instead of forming a battle line, the ships broke into groups of 2 or 3 and attacked from multiple vectors. They accelerated past Krell vessels, fired focused barrages at critical systems, then darted away before the Krell could respond. They used the planet's gravity well to slingshot into unexpected positions. They employed electronic countermeasures learned from centuries of human conflict. The Krell fleet, expecting a straightforward engagement, found themselves chasing shadows. On the Krell flagship, Hive leader Zilth watched with growing confusion as the tactical display descended into chaos. The unknown ships, these Terrans, were not fighting properly. They refused to hold position. They refused to trade blows in honorable combat. They struck and vanished, coordinating their attacks with unnerving precision. 3 Krell destroyers were already damaged, their shields collapsed, their weapons offline. What are they doing? Sylth chittered in frustration. Why will they not stand and fight? The tactical officer clicked nervously. They are using irregular patterns, Hive Leader. Nothing matches standard galactic combat procedures. We cannot predict their movements. Sylth slammed a massive claw against the console. Then adapt. Destroy them. But even as the orders went out, another Krell ship exploded under concentrated human fire. The Terrans had identified a weakness in the Krell formation and exploited it ruthlessly. Sylth felt something the swarm rarely experienced. Doubt. Inside the Valiant, Chen watched her fleet work with satisfaction. All ships begin Phase 2. Target their ground forces landing craft. Do not let them evacuate to the surface. She turned to her communications officer. Get me Major Webb. In the drop bay of the assault carrier Resolute, Major Marcus Webb checked his armor one last time. Every seal was green. Every system showed ready. Around him, 800 Marines of the 2nd Orbital Assault Battalion prepared for deployment. They sat in their drop pods, massive armored eggs designed to punch through atmosphere and deliver troops directly into combat zones. Webb had done this 17 times before. It never got easier. Webb was 34, built solid and strong, with a scar across his left cheek from a close call on Kepler 442b. He had joined the Marines at 18, back when Earth was just starting to explore beyond its own solar system. He had seen combat on 6 different worlds, protecting human colonies from raiders, rescuing survey teams from hostile environments, and once, memorably, stopping a religious cult from nuking a civilian station. He was good at his job. More importantly, he cared about his job. Major Webb, the comm crackled. This is Admiral Chen. You are cleared for drop. Get down there and keep those people alive. Roger that, Admiral, Webb replied. He switched to the battalion frequency. Listen up, Marines. Situation is simple. 4,000 civilians below trapped in a colony. Krell ground forces numbering approximately 10,000 surrounding them. Shields are failing. We drop in, break through the Krell line, establish a defensive perimeter, and hold until the fleet clears orbital space. Questions? Sergeant Diana Kowalski, sitting in the pod next to Webb's, grinned through her helmet feed. Yes, sir. Why do the Krell always get to have more soldiers? Just once I'd like to be the ones outnumbering them. Laughter rippled through the battalion. Webb smiled. Kowalski was 28, Polish-American, and the best logistics sergeant he had ever worked with. She could organize supply lines under fire and make it look easy. More than that, she kept morale high when things got dark. Maybe next time, Sergeant. For now, we play with the hand we are dealt. 30 seconds to drop, the launch coordinator announced. The bay doors began to open and cold air rushed in. Below, the planet Sireth Prime looked peaceful. Green and brown continents, blue oceans, white clouds. It was hard to believe there was a war happening down there. Webb took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of his sister back on Earth, of the promise he made to always come home. He intended to keep that promise. But first he had work to do. 10 seconds. All pods green. Good hunting, Marines. Webb felt his pod launch, the sudden acceleration pressing him back into his seat. Through the small viewport, he saw hundreds of other pods falling with him, trailing fire through the atmosphere. They looked like meteors, like falling stars. The ride was rough, full of shaking and heat, but it only lasted 90 seconds. Then the retro thrusters fired, hard, and the pod slammed into the ground. The front panel blew off with explosive bolts. Webb released his harness, grabbed his rifle, and stepped out into smoke and chaos. Around him, other Marines were deploying from their pods, forming up into squads with practiced speed. The area they had landed in was right in the middle of the Krell siege lines. Exactly where they wanted to be. A Krell warrior, massive and armored in chitinous plates, charged through the smoke. It had 4 arms, each ending in razor-sharp claws. It roared, a sound like grinding metal, and swung at Webb. He moved, years of training taking over, and the claws missed by centimeters. Webb brought his rifle up and fired 3 quick bursts. The rounds punched through the Krell's armor and the creature fell. Contact all directions, someone shouted. More Krell were coming, dozens of them, attracted by the noise and confusion of the landing. The Marines formed a defensive circle, rifles spitting fire. Krell warriors were tough, their natural armor deflecting glancing shots, but human weapons were designed to punch through. And humans had learned long ago that the best way to survive being outnumbered was to work together. Webb's helmet display lit up with tactical data. Friendly forces were marked in blue, hostiles in red. There was a lot of red. First and second companies push northwest. Establish corridor to the colony walls. Third and fourth companies secure the landing zone. Keep those pods available for civilian evacuation. Sergeant Kowalski appeared at his side, her rifle tracking targets. Major, we have civilian contacts. Looks like some of them are trapped outside the main colony wall. Krell have them pinned down in a market district. Webb pulled up the map. He saw the heat signatures, small clusters of life signs surrounded by Krell forces. How many? Maybe 40. A lot of them are reading as juveniles. Children. Webb felt his jaw tighten. Second platoon with me. Double time. He took off at a run, Kowalski and 20 Marines following. They moved through the ruined streets of the colony's outskirts, past burning buildings and overturned vehicles. The Krell had done terrible damage in their siege. But that siege was about to end. They found the civilians in what had once been a marketplace. Stalls and shops surrounded a central plaza, now full of rubble and fear. 43 colonists, most of them children, huddled behind makeshift barricades. 6 Krell warriors were advancing on them, claws extended, mandibles clicking with anticipation. The colonists had no weapons. They were going to die. Webb and his platoon came around the corner at a full sprint. "Light them up!" he roared. 20 rifles opened fire simultaneously, coordinated and devastating. The Krell warriors went down before they knew what hit them. Webb ran to the colonists, lowering his weapon. Through his helmet speakers, his voice projected calm and command. "You are safe now. Stay low and follow us. We will get you to shelter." The colonists stared at him with wide eyes. They were covered in dust and blood, shaking with fear and exhaustion. One of them, a young female with silver skin and 4 arms, stepped forward. She could not have been more than 16. "Who are you?" she asked in a trembling voice. "Major Marcus Webb, Earth Defense Force Marines," he replied. "You called for help, we came. Now let us get you somewhere safe." Back in the command center, Magistrate Velnara watched the tactical display with disbelief. The human ships were systematically destroying the Krell fleet. The human soldiers were pushing through the siege lines. And somehow, impossibly, the colonists were being saved. Chief Engineer Morvan's voice crackled over the comm. "Magistrate, our shields just jumped to 25%. Someone routed emergency power cells from one of the crashed human landing craft to our systems. We have at least another 6 hours now." Velnara felt tears streaming down her face. She looked at the display, at the blue icons representing human forces, and she understood something profound. These humans, these Terrans from a world she had never heard of, had risked their lives for strangers. They had not calculated cost versus value. They had simply heard someone in need and answered. On the surface, Major Webb and his Marines were fighting building to building, holding the line, and they were winning. The cost of compassion. The battle for Sireth Prime raged through its 3rd hour. In the sky above, the human fleet had reduced the Krell armada to scattered remnants. Burning wreckage tumbled through space, and the survivors fled toward the system's edge. Admiral Chen watched them go with grim satisfaction. The orbital battle was over, but on the ground, the fight continued. Major Marcus Webb crouched behind a half-collapsed wall and assessed the situation. His battalion had punched through the Krell siege lines and established a defensive corridor connecting to the colony's main fortress. Civilian evacuations were proceeding, with colonists moving in organized groups under Marine escort toward the sheltered areas deep inside the fortress. So far, they had extracted 900 civilians from the surrounding danger zones. 3,000 more remained inside the fortress, safe for now behind restored shields. But the Krell were not finished. Hive leader Zilth, facing the destruction of his fleet and the failure of his harvest, had gone into a fury. He had rallied his remaining ground forces, approximately 7,000 warriors, for a final desperate assault. Not on the colony walls, which were now defended by human weapons. No, Zilth had identified a more critical target. If he could not harvest the colonists, he would at least deny them to the humans. He would destroy the colony's reactor core. If the reactor went critical, the explosion would vaporize everything within a 10-kilometer radius. The fortress, the civilians, the human forces, everyone would die. It was not victory, but it was vengeance. And for the Krell swarm, sometimes that was enough. Sergeant Diana Kowalski appeared at Webb's position, breathing hard. Her armor was scored with claw marks and her helmet had a crack across the visor. But she was still moving, still fighting. "Major, we have a problem. Big problem. Krell forces are massing near the power station. Looks like they are going for the reactor." Webb pulled up the facility schematics on his helmet display. The reactor was 3 kilometers southeast of their current position, housed in a reinforced bunker complex. It was well protected, but not from a sustained assault by thousands of Krell warriors. How many defenders at the reactor? 30 Marines and maybe 50 armed colonists. They will not last long. Webb made the calculation instantly. If they pulled forces to reinforce the reactor, the evacuation corridor would collapse. If they did not reinforce, the reactor would be destroyed. Either way, people died. He hated these kinds of decisions, but that was why they paid him to be in command. Get me 1st and 3rd platoons. We are moving to the power station. Have 4th platoon take over corridor security. Sir, that is only 60 soldiers against 7,000 Krell. Webb looked at her, his face grim behind his helmet. I know the math, Sergeant. Move out. In the engineering section beneath the fortress, Paula heard the alarms and understood immediately what they meant. The reactor was under attack. Her father Morven was already moving, grabbing tools and spare power cells. Stay here, he ordered his daughter. Help coordinate the evacuations. But Paula had spent 16 years learning to read her father's expressions. She saw the fear in his eyes, the certainty that he was going to the reactor to die holding the line. No, she said firmly. I am coming with you. Paula, I am an engineer, she interrupted, using his own words against him. My place is at the reactor. She grabbed her toolkit and headed for the door. Morven started to argue, then stopped. There was not time. And perhaps if they were going to die today, it was better to die together doing their duty. They ran through the fortress corridors, joining a group of colonist volunteers rushing to defend the power station. Most were miners, used to working with heavy equipment but not trained soldiers. They carried whatever weapons they could find. Plasma torches, mining explosives, industrial tools turned into improvised clubs. It was not much against Krell warriors, but it was what they had. Major Webb and his Marines reached the reactor complex just as the first wave of Krell hit. The creatures came like a tide, thousands of chitinous bodies surging forward with singular purpose. They climbed over their own dead, heedless of casualties, driven by Zilth's fury and the swarm's collective will. The Marines formed a defensive line at the bunker entrance and opened fire. Human rifles spat death in controlled bursts. Grenades arced through the air and exploded in clusters of Krell. But for every warrior that fell, 2 more took its place. The sheer mass of bodies pressed forward, claws reaching, mandibles snapping. The Marines gave ground slowly, firing and falling back, trading meters for Krell lives. Webb fought in the center of the line, his rifle empty, switching to his sidearm. A Krell warrior broke through, massive and enraged. Webb put 3 rounds into its chest, but it kept coming. It swung a claw at his head and he ducked, feeling the wind of its passage. Then Sergeant Kowalski was there, her combat knife driving up under the creature's mandible. The Krell collapsed, and Kowalski pulled Webb back into the defensive formation. Getting a little close there. Sir, she said, reloading her rifle with practiced speed. Noted. Sergeant, Webb replied, changing magazines on his sidearm. Around them the Marines were holding, but barely. They were down to 40 soldiers. Ammunition was running low, and the Krell kept coming. Then Paula and her father arrived with the colonist volunteers. Morven took one look at the situation and made a decision. Paula, take 3 volunteers and get into the reactor control room. Reroute all available power to the entrance shields. I do not care if you have to shut down life support in the rest of the complex. Do it. Paula ran, not looking back, knowing her father was staying to fight. Inside the control room, she found the human technicians struggling to keep systems online under the stress of combat. She moved to a console, her fingers flying across the controls. She had helped build this reactor. She knew every circuit, every relay. She began rerouting power with desperate speed. Outside, the battle had devolved into brutal close-quarters combat. The Krell had pushed into the bunker entrance, and the Marines were fighting hand-to-hand. Webb found himself face-to-face with a massive warrior, trading blows with his empty rifle used as a club. The Krell was stronger, but Webb was faster, more adaptable. He ducked a claw strike, swung his rifle like a bat, and caught the creature across its mandibles. It staggered, and Webb drew his knife, driving it into the gap in the creature's neck armor. Morvan fought alongside the Marines with a mining torch converted into a flamethrower. He was not a soldier, but he was defending his home and his daughter, and that made him dangerous. He set 3 Krell warriors ablaze before a claw caught him across the side. tearing through his environmental suit. He fell, blood pooling beneath him. A Marine dragged him back behind the defensive line, but Morven knew the wound was fatal. Suddenly, the shields at the entrance flared to life, reinforced to maximum strength. Paula had done it. The Krell warriors crashed against the barrier and could not pass. They hammered at it with claws and weapons, but it held. Inside the bunker, the defenders had bought themselves time. Not much, but enough. Webb keyed his comm to fleet frequency. Admiral Chen, this is Webb. Reactor is holding, but we cannot sustain this. We need fire support on the Krell ground forces. Danger close. Authorization code Omega-7. In orbit, Admiral Chen did not hesitate. Confirmed, Major. Fire mission approved. All ships target the Krell ground concentration at the power station. Use precision munitions. Keep clear of the bunker itself. The human fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced down from space, striking with surgical precision. The Krell forces outside the reactor bunker were caught in a storm of fire. Explosions ripped through their ranks and the survivors scattered in confusion. In his command vessel, Hive leader Zilth watched his army disintegrate and knew the harvest had failed. He ordered a retreat, not to save his warriors but to preserve what little of the swarm remained. The battle was over. The Krell withdrew, leaving their dead behind. The human Marines held the reactor and the colony was saved. But the cost had been real. Webb walked through the bunker, counting casualties. 14 Marines dead, 23 wounded, some critically. Morven, the colonist engineer, was dying despite the best efforts of the medics. Webb knelt beside him. Your daughter saved us, Webb said quietly. She got the shields up. We held because of her. Morven managed a weak smile. She is her mother's daughter. Brave and smart. He coughed, blood on his lips. Tell her I am proud. Tell her to keep building things. You can tell her yourself, Webb said, but Morven shook his head. We both know that is not true. But thank you. Thank you for coming. His eyes closed and he stopped breathing. Webb stood slowly, feeling the weight of command, the weight of lives saved and lives lost. The battle had lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 127 human soldiers had died defending Sireth Prime. Another 200 were wounded. Admiral Chen stood in the Fortress Command Center, looking at the final casualty reports. It hurt, every loss hurt, but they had saved 4,200 colonists. That was the mission. That was what mattered. Magistrate Velnara approached Admiral Chen, moving slowly on her old legs. Admiral, I need to understand something. Why did you come? You lost so many people for us. We are not strategic. We are not valuable. We are just miners on a distant world. The Galactic Federation said we were not worth saving. So why did you save us? Chen turned to face the old magistrate. She thought about how to answer, how to explain the philosophy that drove humanity's actions in the galaxy. Magistrate, when we first reached the stars, we learned that most species calculate the value of life in credits and resources. They ask, what is the economic benefit? Us before they act. Humanity learned a different question. We ask, what is the right thing to do? When you sent out that distress call, you were people in danger. That was all we needed to know. But you lost 127 people, Velnara said, her voice breaking. How can that be worth it? Chen put a hand on the magistrate's shoulder. Because those 127 knew what they signed up for. They volunteered to answer distress calls. All of them. Every Marine, every ship crew member, they chose this duty. And they would tell you that 4,200 lives saved makes it worth the cost. We do not calculate whether people are valuable enough to save. We save people because that is what humans do. The word spread across the Galactic Federation network like wildfire. The Battle of Sireth Prime had been broadcast by automated systems, captured by sensors and drones. The galaxy watched as humans, a species barely 40 years into spaceflight, had charged into a battle they should have avoided to save people they had never met. The Federation was shocked. Other species began asking questions. Why had the Council refused to help? Why had economics trumped morality? Ambassador Thessian found himself facing an angry Galactic Senate. His carefully calculated decision, his economically sound reasoning looked like cowardice in the light of human action. The Federation scrambled to contact Earth, to establish formal relations to integrate this new species into their systems. But humanity was wary now. They had seen how the galaxy operated. They were not sure they wanted to join. 6 months after the battle, Sireth Prime had been rebuilt with human help. Engineers from Earth had come to design new defenses, train security forces, and teach the colonists how to protect themselves. Trade agreements had been signed, not based on profit margins but on mutual respect and friendship. Paula was studying engineering at Luna Academy, learning from human teachers while teaching them about alien technology. She visited her father's memorial every week and told him about her progress. She was building things just as he had asked. Major Marcus Webb, recovered from his wounds, was training the new Sireth Prime Defense Force. Former miners and farmers learned to use modern weapons and tactics. They would never be helpless again. Webb made sure of that. Admiral Chen's fleet had already moved on to the next crisis. Another colony, another distress call that the Federation had ignored. The humans went anyway, because that was what humans did. In her office on the rebuilt fortress, Magistrate Velnara recorded a message that would spread across the galaxy. To any species who finds themselves in danger, who calls for help and hears only silence, who believes that no one cares, know this. Humanity hears. Humanity answers. In the darkness, when all others turn away, Earth's warriors will fall from the sky, because they have taught us something the galaxy had forgotten, that every life has value, that compassion is not calculated in credits, and that when someone calls for help, the right response is not, "What will it cost?" but "How fast can we get there?" This is the lesson of Sireth Prime. This is the gift humanity gave us. Hope. And across the stars on countless worlds, people heard her words and believed.